Welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome back to USFL Week 4 recap. Here brought to you by Driving to the Top Productions. I have a very special guest today, but first we're going to bring in our normal guests. We're going to bring in a Pittsburgh Maulers fan and a Squealers fan in Sports Talking It. How we doing today, bud?
Hey, what's up, Eb? Um, Doing good. I usually you go Jamie first, throwing me off a little bit.
Yeah, wanted to switch it up a little bit this week.
Oh,
But
you're welcome.
yeah, so we doing free brands today?
What do you mean?
Your Coke, your Pepsi bottle.
It's not even open. It's wild cherry, but we'll hide it.
No, we don't have to hide it. I'll just, clip that and send it over to Pepsi and see if they'll give us a quick sponsor or
I
anything
gotta
like
get
that.
Samuel Adams though. Porch Rockers. If you're a Leinenkugel fan, this is the stuff right here. This is way better
Absolutely.
than the Summer Sandy, and I'm giving free advertisement to Samuel Adams.
Fair enough. I'll clip that to them as well. And now we're going to bring in a very special
Absolutely.
guest, well-known co-host, aka Chris Berman Jr., Jamie Malloy.
Thank you, Evan, for that intro. And I also have a free advertisement we could send to. I got Diet Cherry, Zero Sugar, Dr. Pepper, Strawberries, and Cream. It's empty. I drank it all. But yeah, here you go. Dr. Pepper right here. And I'm a pepper. You're a pepper. He's a pepper. She's a pepper. You could be a Dr. Pepper too. That was a commercial from the 1970s of Dr. Pepper. But there you go. Yeah, so everybody's here. I'm glad to be here. I actually got my first official USFL t-shirt, and it's a Pittsburgh Maulers t-shirt I got from shopusfl.com. And now I officially got that shirt. I'm official member of USFL.com. And I mentioned my favorite team was the Pittsburgh Maulers, so I can get instant news from them every single week on what's going on. I'm also a member of shopxfl.com too. So I'm official member of both spring leagues. And I also I write for Defiant Takes Football.com, where I exclusively write football stories for Syracuse Orange football, Buffalo Bills NFL football, and I also write for stories on both spring leagues, the XFL and the USFL too.
Absolutely. And we're going to do a fake ad for Sun Kiss, where you're kissed by the best flavor in the game. And now we're going to bring in a very special guest, and I'm going to let him tell you all about his ventures and how he got into the sports game. How we doing, bud?
I'm doing great. My name's Luke Miller. I'm with USFL Newsroom. Super excited to be with you guys tonight. I'm feeling like empty-handed because I didn't grab some kind of drink or bottle, so I don't got anything to plug. So I don't know. Next time I'll come prepared. But
it's all right. We got country time just for you. Everybody loves lemonade, so we're gonna send this to everybody that we can, just so that we can try and get a sponsor, man. But tell us a little bit more.
Don't forget about the Boston Scally.
Yeah, there you go. We got all the bases covered.
Or if you want to go grunt style too.
I've got, speaking of Shop USFL, I've got my Stallions sweatshirt on that I got from that website, so I can plug that. Jump on that train. So,
well, I'm covering them for free. I'm covering them for free.
Old Maulers jersey right there.
Boo! Peanut butter and jelly jerseys. Boo!
Yeah, the orange and purple, man. That I kind of liked it just because it was unique, but it is a love or hate thing, I think.
I hate their new jerseys, so it's okay.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, a little bit about me. So, like I said, my name's Luke Miller. I mostly cover the Stallions. I do kind of cover league broadly as well, but definitely primarily the Stallions. Work with USFL Newsroom. So if you've checked out the website before, or if you've ever listened to the USFL podcast, kind of associated with those guys. Live in Birmingham, so kind of on the ground here, able to cover the team that way, and kind of followed last year as a fan. Kind of got into alternative football through the Birmingham Iron and the AAF a couple of years back when they came to the city, and I was kind of new to the city, and that's kind of how I really started to get connected here and make this place a home. But when the USFL decided to come back and kind of base everything in Birmingham last season, I was sort of all in on that and tried to support it as much as I could. And then this year, door kind of opened up to support it in a different way and do a little more coverage of the league and the team and kind of spread the news about what was going on with the USFL, but especially specifically the defending champion Stallions. So been doing that this year. It's been super fun, really enjoying continuing to follow the league, but kind of share a little bit of, what I've learned along the way and that kind of stuff. So it's been great.
Absolutely. And I will admit I'm a little jealous because we're all trying to do the same thing. So after the show, maybe we'll get some pointers on that one and see what we can do.
I'm learning as I go, but I don't know if I have many pointers, but I'll give you what I got.
Hey, anything helps because you see where we're at. We're enjoying it, though. So with all that being said, we're going to start off with our Week 4 recap. Man, this is pretty fast. Next week is halfway through the season for the USFL. If you guys want to go back and watch our first preview episode or our first recap episode to see our predictions, we'll be recapping that next week. But our very first game this week is going to be from the Houston Gamblers and the Philadelphia Stars. Luke, since you're the newcomer, I'll let you go first. And what were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I predicted the Gamblers would win, but I thought it would be close. Obviously, the Stars have struggled this year, but I've been high on them all year coming into the season just because obviously they were able to make the championship last year and they got Case Cookus back. And I thought kind of that alone would be enough to propel them into a top team in the league. But a couple weeks in now, it's obviously become pretty clear that they are, one of, if not maybe the worst team in the league right now. I don't know that I have anything, it's pretty obvious what's wrong. I don't know that I have anything to say that anybody else hasn't pointed out already. I mean, obviously you can have a great quarterback, but if he can't throw the ball without getting sacked 4 times a game and hit 5 other times, there's just not a lot he can do. And the defense obviously has struggled, and they hit a Gamblers team that is getting hot right now and kind of clicking on all cylinders after kind of working the kinks out the first few weeks. So I thought the Gamblers were going to win, but I thought it would be closer than it was. I thought the Stars, if nothing else, would be able to put up some more points than they did, but clearly they're just really struggling right now, and the Gamblers just are looking better and better each week. So impressive week for the Gamblers, and the Stars is kind of, I think, they're kind of quickly entering sort of SOS kind of emergency mode, 1-3, and look like they're moving in the wrong direction. So big win for the Gamblers, tough spot to be in for the Stars.
Absolutely. I'll pass it on to you, Jamie. What were your thoughts on the game?
It's interesting. It's a tale of 2 seasons for both teams. Last year, the Houston Gamblers got off to a very hot start, and they were 2-0 out of the gates with Coach Kevin Sumlin last year. And it looked like they were on their way to a great season last year. But then they started losing a lot of games at the end of the year where they were blowing fourth quarter leads. But it's the opposite this year where they started out 0-2, and now they're finding ways to win by airing it out in a spread attack and then just going old school, just running the ball down people's throats with big Mark Thompson, the big hoss at running back at 6'4", 230 pounds. And one of the highlights in the game where it was 7-7 and he was just barreling through people's tackles and running 33 yards for the touchdown. And he's just setting the tone. And he's a big guy, and he's not only that big, but he's got speed to his game too. So with that formula now of being able to air the ball out in the spread and just running it in the I formation and just running the clock out and everything, that's a formula that could get them into the playoffs. And who knows, maybe win the whole shooting match with it. We'll see.
Sports talking it.
Thompson, I asked you before the show of why you wouldn't want Thompson as a Brown, and you started giving me an answer, but you didn't finish. But I feel that he's making a strong running, and he's really turning it on. That run he had for that 33-yard touchdown, like Jamie said, was pretty amazing how he stayed in bounce and had enough knowledge to put the ball down and hit the pylon on his way out of bounds. But Houston, or The Stars, I just don't know. Like they were really good last year. I mean, they played all the way to the end, and this year this looks like they're on a downward complete spiral. Whether it can be stopped or not, I'm not sure. I know the season still has 6 games left, but 5 games, yeah, 6 games left, but I don't know what exactly is happening there. Whenever your quarterback, like Luke said, is on the ground 4 to 5 times, they lead the league in sacks after 4 weeks of getting sacked, not sacks, but getting sacked. That's not a good stat for your quarterback.
Not at all. So I actually had Houston for this game. I just felt like they're starting to figure it out with Bahar and having a mobile style offense, a quick offense that can move around the field. I do like Thompson. I'm going to answer that here and now. I do like Thompson. I wouldn't be mad if we got him, but to me, he kind of reminds me of Leonard Fournette. If he catches the ball out of the backfield, I feel like he has to get ahead of steam, or a guy has to take a bad angle for him to get his feet moving again before he can make somebody miss and get upfield. With the other player that we'll cover later, I just feel like there's a little bit more versatility. He has a great burst between the tackles as well as outside off the tackle in a zone style scheme, which is something that we run here. And the fact that the Cleveland Browns will have a more of a shotgun heavy offense. I haven't really seen enough that I like from Thompson just yet to say that I would want him in the backfield. But with that being said, I agree with Luke. I thought that Philly would have more of an offense. I didn't think they would win, but I definitely thought they would get these offensive struggles together, that they would be able to protect their quarterback and figure some things out. But apparently not. If they don't win next week, I would put them in SOS mode. I also thought last year they had some struggles. I definitely didn't pick them to make it to the end, but we've seen with the XFL that you just can't count guys out, because if we're looking at the Renegades, we never thought that they were going to make it to where they are now. And look at it. They're playing the number one team that we all thought was going to make it at the beginning of the year for the XFL. So I'm not really ready to count them out just yet, but I am very concerned. So we're going to keep the same rotation with that. And Luke, did you have a player of the game or somebody that stood out to you?
I mean, obviously Thompson, but that's the easy answer. So I'm going to give you somebody else, which this is also maybe an easy answer. But I mean, Kenji Bahar, I've just really been impressed with the progress he's made. At the beginning of the season, he had some good throws, definitely looked like some potential, but he was throwing interceptions left and right. And the way he's cleaned up his game and progressed over the last few weeks has just been really impressive. I mean, he threw for 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, almost, was just a pass completion shy of being about a 75% completion rate. So I think about 11 yards per clip on the passes. So, I mean, just a really excellent game from him. Obviously, the Stars, not the best defense in the world, but just to see his progression and the way that he's able to move the ball through the air, I mean, that's helping to give Thompson, some of what he's able to do on the ground, is because they can't commit to one way or the other. They're not a one-dimensional team. So really impressed with Bahar and the progress he's made just in a couple weeks since the season started.
Absolutely. Jamie?
I'm going to go with Kenji Bahar, and I've been, like I said, he's the USFL's version of Lamar Jackson, the way he rolls out of the pocket and runs for the first down and throws the ball. And if I think, Luke, you may know this about him more than I do. In 2021, he got invited to Baltimore Ravens rookie minicamp as an undrafted free agent, where he actually was under the tutelage of Lamar Jackson there. And you could definitely see where he learned some of those skills from the quarterback in Baltimore, as he can roll out of the pocket like Lamar Jackson. Has a very similar playing style to him too.
Sports talking it.
Ratliff Williams, 4 for 4 on 4 catches, 4 targets. He had a touchdown, very nice touchdown, actually. I know he wasn't the leading receiver in yards, but he did have 2 of those catches as big first downs. So I like that performance. The one-handed interception by what was his name? I can't think of his name, but he had a really nice one-handed grab.
I think it was
That was
Manny
my
Bunch,
defensive
wasn't it?
guy. What was that?
Was it Manny Bunch?
Jones. Eden Jones, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I definitely loved the interception, but for all announcers and all fans, can we kind of kill the Odell vibe thing? Like nothing's ever gonna match that vibe or match that setting or the catch itself.
That
Great
was a
catch.
nice interception, Evan. Did you see it?
It was, but we see a great
I
one-handed
didn't
catch.
even
at
say
least
Odell
twice a week.
Beckham.
I know you
But
did.
you never see one-handed grabs from defensive backs, though.
I could make you a highlight tape. We could talk about that later.
All right,
But
whatever.
I mean, look, I'm definitely not trying to take away from your pick. I was actually going to go with him as well. That was a great play. But the Odell great catch, the Odell vibes, the 13 tweets. Come on, bro. That's over with. We got some other great catches that we're going to talk about. But yeah, I'm definitely going to give him player of the game because to me, if I picked anybody else, it just wouldn't seem fair. But I will say that this is the second week in a row that at least, or the third week in a row, if I'm not mistaken, where somebody has picked Bahar as their standout player of the game when it comes to the gamblers. So now we're going to transition over to our second game of the week. I believe this was also on Saturday, which was the Memphis Showboats, which we can finally call the Maulers West. There we go. Yes, Maulers West when it comes to uniforms, as they take on the Michigan Panthers. I'll go with Jamie first this time. Give him a chance to start it out. So what were your thoughts on the game, Jamie?
I think Todd Haley finally picked the right quarterback to start. He finally figured what the trends are in today's NFL. By starting Cole Kelly, you got to start that 6'7", 250-pound Josh Allen type mobile quarterback to send to the NFL, and that's how you start by starting Cole Kelly. Yeah, Brady Mason. I know I was very high on him at the beginning of the year, but then I realized he was only 6'3", and then I realized Cole Kelly was 6'7", 250 pounds. It was an athlete. And I could see last week that even though they lost to Houston and it was his first start and he threw for 307 yards, and then I was like, yep, Haley definitely knew what he was doing by switching to Kelly because he's figuring what quarterback is the right trend to send to the NFL, and that's a big 6'7", 250-pound athlete like Cole Kelly, which is that tall quarterback and mobile, and that's what you need now to send to the NFL, and he's going to start doing that in the XFL, which is going to help Memphis start picking up more wins at the end of the year, even if they finish 4-6 or 5-5. So,
absolutely, sports talking it.
Memphis has a pretty good kicker. I'm not sure of his name, Kessman.
Alex Kessman, yeah.
But he had 2 field goals over 50 yards. Josh Love, man, I don't know if it takes him like a half of football to get warmed up or what, but I don't know. He threw what, 2 picks, I think, in the first half.
He had 2 picks, yes.
I don't know if they're both. I think they're both in the first half. I'm not sure, but it just seems like it takes him a little bit to get that motor going.
I think defense is like what you asked me, Evan. You asked me if they were going to start figuring the Panthers out and everything. Like it started last week. New Jersey finally figured out that Josh Love, all he can do is sit back in the pocket and throw, and he's got no mobility. And like I said, in today's XFL and college and the NFL, you got to be able to run too. You can't just be a Phillip Rivers or a Tom Brady and just sit back there not be able to run. And even Memphis, who was the worst defense in the league, figured that out too. And this is a very unpopular opinion, Adam, that you're not going to want to hear, but I think Michigan needs to go to Carson Strong to be their starter now instead of Josh Love, because when Carson
Strong threw an interception too, didn't he?
Right, but at least when he got in there, they did start moving the ball, and Carson Strong has mobility where he can run the naked bootleg, where Josh Love doesn't have any mobility to even run that play. That's why.
I kind of absolutely agree. Well, I don't kind of absolutely agree. That doesn't work. Right? I agree with what Jamie's got there. I like what I see out of Caleb Love, but there are just some times where you see him make erratic decisions due to the fact that he can't get out of the pocket and extend a play. You saw that twice in the Birmingham game with their quarterback, and we're definitely going to talk about that because that really impressed me. But it's just the way that the game is going across all sports. You see high schools now, they'll put if their quarterback ain't getting it done, you're seeing wide receivers being put back there for option style offenses and things to make their offenses move. You're seeing it in the XFL, you're seeing it in the NFL. At this point, if you don't have a mobile quarterback, you're picking in the top of the draft. I think that's another reason that we kind of saw how high Richardson went. He has a high floor and an extremely high ceiling. But there's one thing that you can guarantee is that when that offensive line breaks down, he can run. And that was a big concern when it came to Justin Fields. He can run. And then you see in his second year, he's taken off and taken all over the place. You saw starting quarterback for Birmingham last year. I can't think of his name right now. Ran all over the place. You saw Jamar Smith, absolutely. You see, we can point it out on almost every team that once they figure out that they have some kind of mobile quarterback, even if he can only run for 3 yards, but it's 3 yards consistently, it keeps the defenses guessing because they're starting to finally put athletes on the defensive side of the ball as well as just the offense. My biggest thing here is ball control and red zone efficiency when it comes to the Panthers, just due to the fact that they got to the red zone, 3 times this game, and only one offensive touchdown, and apparently one field goal because you see the score. So other than that, I mean, what are they doing here? So I'll pass this on to Luke before I get long-winded. Luke, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I was a little surprised by this one. I will say, the Showboats obviously got decimated by the Stallions in week 2. And I think because of that, people have been really down on them. But if you look at their other games, I mean, they lost to the Stars close, which, in hindsight, the Stars haven't been great since then. So, I don't know that there's much to say about that. But then they lost to the Gamblers close. I mean, I feel like they've had moments where you could kind of see, like, hey, this team, they do have some potential. And so I thought that this game was going to be a game. I didn't think the Panthers were going to run away with it. But it was the one sort of game of the week that I got wrong as far as my picks, because I did think the Panthers are going to be able to pull it out. For the Panthers, I'm not ready to say it yet, but depending on what happens this next week against the Maulers, they might be the candidate for sort of, at least looking back at week 1, week 2, kind of biggest frauds of the USFL, because after week 1 and 2, when they were 2-0, they looked like primed to be kind of kings of the North, right? And everybody was hyping them up. But in hindsight, it's like, well, you beat a Gamblers team in week 1, and that game was pretty close until late. They kind of ran away with it. But at the time, the Gamblers, they had not meshed. They had not gelled, and they were not the same team that they are now, right? You beat a Stars team in week 2 that, in hindsight, isn't very good. And since then, you haven't won a game, and it hasn't even really been terribly competitive. So, I don't know. The Panthers could still definitely figure some things out and turn it around. They certainly obviously have had a strong defense. At moments, the offense has looked really good, and they've obviously got some great ball players over there. But, I was a little surprised that the Showboats were able to handle them, sort of as decisively as they did. So, and again, it was at home. I think we all kind of anticipated some home field advantage for the Panthers too, being able to play in Ford Field the last 2 weeks, and it just hasn't panned out. So, I don't know, some other guys I talked to, they're like, they really think there's a Ford Field curse, and maybe they're right. I don't know. But I know Michigan Panthers fans have probably been disappointed with what they've seen the last couple of weeks because the team seems to have taken a step back since the way they looked at the beginning of the year. So props to Memphis figured it out. But yeah, go ahead.
Do you think Nolan is ready to do a professional team? Because wasn't he doing high school? I heard something saying that he was going a little light on the kids, and he's not used to the full pro mentality back yet. Maybe he hasn't gotten his game back down after only 4 games into it. So
yeah,
and also Ford Field is horrible right now. The home team is 0-4 in the games played there.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. There might be a Ford Field curse. I don't know, but with Nolan, I don't know. I mean, he's a guy that has so much professional experience in his past. It's hard to think that he doesn't. He was in the league for I think like 33 years or something like crazy like that. In different capacities. So it's hard to think that he hasn't been around professional football enough to kind of know what to do. But now he's never been in a spring league before, as far as I know. Like he wasn't around the AAF, the XFL. I think this is his first kind of time doing a league like this. So, I'm sure he's kind of figuring it out and making adjustments as he goes. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, the first couple of weeks, obviously, it looked like they kind of were disciplined and knew what they were doing and were kind of dominating games. And then the last couple of weeks, they seem to not have been able to really make any adjustments or figure out, how to get into rhythm on offense, how to necessarily be as dominant as they were the first couple of weeks on defense. So, I think the jury's still out on Nolan. He's obviously got the resume in ways, but spring leagues are different. I mean, you look at last year and the guys that I thought were primed to be great coaches like Jeff Fisher with NFL experience, years as an NFL head coach. Obviously he was, known for his 8-8 records, but I was like, this is the guy, he's going to know how to do pro football and can't really struggled. Right. Then you had other guys like Skip Holtz, the Stallions coach, who's just like, got some kind of group of 5 college level experience, just a different kind of resume and really came in immediately, gelled, kind of understood the spring league thing, was able to build a team. So I don't know, I haven't obviously been a coach at that level. I don't know what it takes, but, clearly, certain levels of experience doesn't always translate to this kind of type of league, this type of player, all that kind of stuff. So.
But Luke.
Yes.
Could I say something about Skip Holtz, though?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at who he's related to.
Yeah, you're right. For sure.
He's got the bloodlines. His father was he didn't do good in the NFL, but his father was a Hall of Fame coach at Notre Dame. So, he's got the bloodlines coming from that family, and he's got the name tag. So,
yeah, absolutely. No, not trying to knock Skip at all. I mean, he's a great coach. He just didn't have any professional experience, and I just didn't know how that would translate. But it really didn't matter. I mean, that's really not what it took to be a good coach at this level. So, I don't know. Like I said, I think the jury's still out on Nolan, but we're gonna see if he can kind of make some adjustments and kind of figure things out moving forward.
And Adam, Mike Nolan was actually a defensive coordinator for the Cowboys in 2020. So it was just 3 years ago he was in the league.
Oh, he was
during
head coach of
COVID.
the Niners too.
Yeah, he did.
He's got the resume.
Yeah.
He just coached high school kids where he couldn't be as a normal, like hardcore, get in your face type of coach because I hate to say these kids are kind of baby these days. And a lot of them, he might have lost his job, but we didn't have this to try and fall back on,
But how many of those kids do you think still went Division I under him, though, even though he got fired with a losing record? Still, you never know, right?
Right. I'm just saying, like, that's why that was one of my biggest questions about Nolan was going back to high school. Did he kind of lose his edge?
Mm-hmm. You never know because he probably still had a lot of Division I caliber talent on that team that still played for a bunch of Division I powerhouses with them.
Yeah, did you know where he coached high school at, Luke?
Not off the top of my head. No, not recently. I'm more familiar with his kind of NFL resume.
Like maybe he was 3-8, but he still had a bunch of kids that ended up playing for Rutgers or Alabama. But or he had a lot of teams that played Power 5 football, but the record was bad. You get what I'm saying? Because that type of football's got good competition, you know.
Yeah, I think the time will tell. You know, he's got to figure some things out, and he's got to do it quickly. And he certainly, like I said, I think he's been around football enough that he can do it. But like you said, you know, it's not like he came to this job having just been an NFL defensive coordinator last season or something like that, you know. So, and the game's always changing and new things are always happening. So we'll see if he can kind of get up to speed like he needs
exactly.
to.
That was one of my major concerns, but you know, like how long does it take a coach to get back in the full game mode? I guess.
Yeah.
Because we know high school ball was a lot different than grades higher.
For sure.
So, did we go over player of the games?
I don't think we have yet.
Luke, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go. So mine was a guy that I think went under the radar a little bit, but my player of the game is probably Kerrith Whyte, running back for Memphis. In previous weeks, Memphis has really leaned on Alex Collins as their running back, and he's looked, you know, good at points. But he was out this week. You know, I think
is that the Alex Collins? Is that the ex-NFL running back?
Yeah, he started college at Arkansas. Then he went to Seattle. Then he actually almost rushed for 1,000 yards at Baltimore. Yep. He was on everybody's fantasy team. Then he got arrested for like marijuana, and then he came back, and then he his career ended. But then he came back and with Memphis, and yeah, he was actually a 5th-round pick, but he actually had a good 5 years in the NFL. It's not like he didn't produce in the NFL. He actually had a pretty good short but effective career in the NFL. His stats weren't bad if you look him up.
Yeah. No, he was a good ball player and big pickup for Memphis in the offseason. And they've kind of been, you know, letting him control the running, you know, the touches and the running back position and stuff up to this week. But this week he was out injured, I believe. And, you know, Kerrith Whyte kind of stepped in as the main guy and I thought had a great game in several different aspects. You know, running the ball, he ran the ball 15 times for 54 yards. Wasn't amazing, but at least, you know, contributed something. Then he was also tied for their leading receiver with 3 catches. Again, only had 27 yards, but was targeted 7 times, almost the most on the team. And then where he really impressed me was in the return game, actually. He had 3 kickoff returns for 107 yards, so averaged over 35 yards per return with a long of 57. And so, you know, you put all that together, guy touched the ball, you know, almost 20 times in the game. I think, you know, all-purpose yards ended up with, you know, around 150 or so, 175. And, you know, I thought did a good job stepping in for Collins and contributing, being a target for Kelly out of the backfield, you know, adding a little bit in the run game, setting them up with good field position. So Kelly played great at quarterback, kind of like you were saying earlier, Jamie. I think, Todd Haley kind of found his guy in Kelly, but I liked what I saw out of Kerrith Whyte, and I think, you know, he's going to be a good player for them, maybe a good kind of guy to rotate with Collins once Collins is healthy again.
I got another player of the game too. I got Kelly and the kicker. And the reason why I say the kicker is because in a league now where all the kickers are really struggling, a guy like him would be huge to sign in the NFL because he's like the John Parker Romo of the USFL. And there's a low supply but a high demand for kickers in this league now. That's why in the NFL.
Well, his first 2 kicks were over 50 yards, and you know that's kind of.
But this is where you're going to find a lot of your good kickers and the XFL, the USFL, and like your undrafted rookies in the NFL draft, and even your drafted rookies are going to help probably create a new renaissance of good kicking in the NFL once the veteran guys run their course.
Mine was Cool Kelly. That was my player of the game. Just from the rushing touchdowns. Passing day was not very talkable.
But
He
it was
got
efficient, though. He
157
picked up
yards, no
first downs
touchdowns,
when he
no
needed to,
interceptions.
though.
So
Yeah, he made things happen. I mean, he got the job done. It wasn't always pretty, but he did more than enough to keep the offense moving.
That fourth down he converted late
Okay.
was like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
all right, we got anything else from this game
No, I think it'll be
before we
interesting
move
to
to
see.
Canton, Ohio?
I think it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens with these teams next week. Showboat's finally got a little bit of momentum, but now they got to face, the best team in the league. Panthers, they're struggling, and if they lose, they're going to fall out of the top two in the North. So, be interesting to see what happens with these teams moving forward.
All right, we're going to move on to the next game, which is on the Sunday slate in Canton, Ohio. The New Orleans Breakers and the New Jersey Stallions. Go ahead, Jamie or Luke, whoever wants to start it off, go for it.
I'll start it off, and I know New Orleans won this game, but give credit to New Jersey, though. I mean, I kind of had a feeling this game was going to be closer because, yeah, New Orleans is the best team in the league, but we got to remember New Jersey was 9-1 in the league last year, and Mike Nolan was coach of the year last year. And even though they lost to Philadelphia, this team's loaded with pieces that can compete with a team like New Orleans. I mean, you got that Deontay Johnson, who I still can't believe after last year and even this year, I don't understand how he doesn't get an NFL camp. And this is a quarterback that runs a 4.37 40-yard dash. He's that athletic. He's got a cannon arm. It's like he's faster than both Anthony Richardson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. And it's like he's still playing in the USFL. I bet you if he plays a full year after this year, he's going to get an NFL invite soon with that natural speed and talent. You can't coach that in a quarterback. And the running back, Darius Victor's really good too. And he's got the best saying ever. He always says, thick thighs save lives. I love that. It's just funny to say.
Right.
That interview that he had with the Fox reporter last year, because he always says that. He's like Evan says, he's like a Nick Chubb type of running back. He's 5'9", 220, and he's built like him, and he can catch out of the backfield like Nick Chubb. That's why he wants him in Cleveland. But anyway, what about West Hill?
Not bad.
Man?
That fumble hurt them though.
That did hurt them there after being down 7-0. But going to New Orleans, how about McClyde Bethel Thompson, the 30-plus-year-old who won a Grey Cup in the Canadian League and used to play for the Miami Dolphins and is now starting for the New Orleans Breakers. I mean, he's doing such a fabulous job with that offense. And how about West Hills, man, at running back, just like Julia Andrews or Julia Roberts sung in The Sound of Music, the Hills are alive. They're definitely alive, but they're alive in New Orleans with this running back, man. I mean, he's a freaking beast. It seems like every time he touches the ball, he's always running in for a score with them. He's the one that makes this offense go, and both offenses played well, but unfortunately it came down to a late field goal with the field goal kicker Matthew Coughlin and
Matt Coughlin.
Matt Coughlin, yeah, and it came down to New Orleans squeaking it out 20-17, but it was both teams played a great game and both were well coached. And I'm telling you, if these two teams happen to play again in the championship game, it'll be awesome to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. This certainly could be a championship preview. Time will tell, but two really excellent teams, two teams very well coached, two teams strong on both sides of the ball, two teams that can run it and throw it. I mean, just two really well-rounded units. I was impressed with what I saw out of New Jersey. Week one against the Stallions, they didn't look like the same team as last year. The 9-1 team that made it to the playoffs, that was racked up all kinds of awards at the end of the year and all that kind of stuff. Week one, they were inefficient on offense. They struggled at times on defense, gave up big plays. And, I didn't know if maybe they weren't going to be as good this year as they were last year. But they really seem to have kind of got back into the rhythm, picked up where they left off from last year since that week 1, kind of got the jitters out, and they just look better and better each week. Obviously didn't pull out the win, but I mean, played the best team in the league right now to within a field goal. And, DeAndre Johnson, like you were saying, Jamie, he's really, he looks great, throwing the ball, running the ball, making plays, being smart, being efficient. I don't think he has a single interception yet on the season. He's being a really good decision maker, controlling what he can control, picking up, yardage, taking what the defense will give him. So I really like what I saw out of New Jersey, and I love, Mike Riley, the coach, love what he does. Obviously the Breakers are just right now, they're just the team to beat. I mean, they can do so much on offense. Their defense, I don't think is amazing, but they get the job done. They gave up 31 points against the Stallions, for example, but they created some turnovers. They made plays. They kind of buckled up when they needed to, got some sacks at the end of the game and stuff like that. So their defense is good enough to keep them in games and to make plays when they need to make plays. And then their offense is looking, darn near unstoppable. Like you said, Jamie, with McLeod Bethel Thompson slinging the rock, and with Wes Hills basically untackleable, and, scores, like you said, scores a touchdown every other time he touches the ball. So they're a scary team, definitely the team to beat right now. It's hard to say, but we could see them run the table. I mean, they look that good to me. So great game. Like I said, could be a championship preview. Time will tell, but two really, really good teams, fun game to watch, and excited to see kind of what happens with both these teams moving forward.
That Eccles kid, he's pretty fast. He took that little slant, cut back, and then just took off. I think, it was bad tackling on the Breakers for sure. They missed him at least 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
But still, he turned it into a little 6-yard pass and went 64 yards with it. That was one of the highlights, I thought. But I thought that was a great play.
The way he was able to turn it on was impressive.
Some of these guys' speed just wows me.
Yeah, it's NFL caliber speed too. It's what's crazy about it.
I mean, we'll talk about speed in the next game on a return, but geez, I think the guy in the next game hit 19.2 top speed.
Yeah,
that's like a school zone.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it was just crazy to me. Like, but anyway,
but I'm just saying that quarterback though for New Jersey, like I said, imagine that though, like 4-3-7. You would think that in a dual threat quarterback league where you got Allen, Mahomes, and Richardson, where everybody's running read option and RPO.
He only had 5 carries for 38 yards.
I'm just saying his natural speed where everybody's running RPO and everything, that he should be in the NFL or at least get NFL looks with that type of speed though as a quarterback. I'm saying in today's pro league with the way quarterbacks are dual threats, I still don't know how he doesn't. DeAndre Johnson. But I hope after this year he does get at least a training camp look, though.
Well, didn't they?
He definitely deserves it.
Who else was their quarterback last year in New Jersey? Because they
Louis
split
Perez.
Yeah,
Louis Perez, and now he's playing.
He's the quarterback playing for the Renegades right now.
XFL championship, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
so obviously they knew what they were doing. Go ahead, Luke. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
I was just saying, former Birmingham Iron quarterback. So he's been around the block.
Yeah.
So are we going with a Breaker or a General as the player of the game?
That's a good question. I think I'll jump in.
More like you're talking more Generals, but Generals lost this game, so
that's true. That's a fair point.
I mean, it has to be West Hills, right?
The Breakers, I have West Hills.
Yeah. It's hard not to go with Hills. I'm going to go with a guy a little outside the box, but we mentioned him earlier, Matt Coughlin, the kicker. I mean, been really impressed with him this year. He hasn't missed a field goal or an extra point yet. From if I
was going to say he's 9 for 9, I believe, on the season in field goals. I don't know what he is in extra points.
Yeah, and I mean they've been scoring a lot of points, so it's not like he's kicked 2 field goals and 3 extra points. I mean the dude's kicking all the time, and he hasn't missed a thing yet. And in a game like this, that was a tight game. They won by a field goal, right? I mean the difference was they both scored 2 touchdowns. New Jersey had 1 field goal. New Orleans had 2. So obviously credit to the offense getting them into position where they were able to kick those field goals. But Coughlin has been clutch. He's 100% kicking the ball. 1 field goal was the difference in this game. If he had missed that, doinked it off the upright, something like that, could have had to go to overtime. If he I don't know, missed an extra point early in the game or something, could have changed things. So Breakers are winning in all 3 facets of the game: offense, defense, and special teams with Coughlin. So want to give him props again.
Again, another guy that definitely wants to be kicking on Sundays too, Coughlin, with those numbers.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think they all do, James. I get that vibe from you see the hits. The hits are what just amaze me. You don't see them hits in the NFL hardly
It's
at all.
because they call penalties up the yin yangs in the NFL.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, that's what I was getting to. But
you don't see those called penalties in the spring leagues. That's why.
And maybe that's why I like it a little more.
Yeah,
me too.
They let the boys be boys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Luke, since this is your home team on the next game, but they were on the road, why don't you kick us off with this almost scare again?
Yeah. It was a great game. I figured it would be a tight, tough game. The Maulers, I mean, looking back at their schedule, they really kind of got the short end of the stick. I mean, they've had to play the Breakers in week 1, who seem to be, separating themselves as the best team in the league. They had to play, the Generals as well in the first 3 weeks, and then they had to play Stallions week 4. And so 3 of the best teams right now, the only 3 teams that have won at least 3 games, they've had to play in their first 4 games. And so, no breaks for them. But all of those games have been close. I mean, they lost to the Breakers by a touchdown. New Jersey wasn't quite as close, but it was still, 2-3 score game. And then this game, obviously,
it was only that fourth quarter whenever they really got blown out by New Orleans, I believe, right?
Yeah. So
it was 9.
No,
I think
New
it was
Jersey.
9.
New Jersey, yeah.
New Jersey. I'm sorry. It was like 9-9 until the fourth quarter.
3-3.
3-3. Yep.
I don't remember everything.
They've been in every game. They've been right there in every game with the 3 best teams in the league. And those first couple of weeks, they had 0 offense. I mean, absolutely no offense. It was just the defense was single-handedly keeping them in the games and special teams. And so
the kick return, Henny.
Yeah, and the kicker. Yeah, Henny, absolutely. Yeah.
No, Henny's the returner.
Yeah. Henny, the kick returner, punt returner, and then blew it last week. Had 5 field goals or whatever, tied the USFL record in his first game with them. So special teams defense have been awesome for the Maulers. It's just the offense that has struggled. And the Stallions defense is coming off a rough week. So it's a great opportunity for the Maulers to kind of get things going a little bit more offensively. And they were able to do that. I mean, they kind of, I think, have found their guy, and Troy Williams has kind of been a theme of what we've been talking about.
The red zone is killing them, though.
Yeah, it is. No, it is. I mean, until they figure that out, they can't be a great team. They can't keep
kicking field goals.
Absolutely. You're not going to beat the Stallions. You're not going to beat the Breakers. You're not going to beat the Generals by getting into the red zone 3 or 4 times a game and not scoring a single touchdown. I mean, that's just not a
They score a touch. They scored 2. They convert one of them for a touchdown. They might have won that game.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they could have easily, in a different world, they could have easily been up at one point 21-0. They had the ball inside the 10 3 times or in the first half
and blew it,
came away with 9 points. Yeah. And the Stallions, I mean, it's a mind-boggling that the Stallions were winning that game at halftime. I mean, the Maulers dominated the first half. Stallions threw 2 interceptions. The Maulers were moving up and down the field all over them, had way more yards, got inside the 10-yard line 3 times. I mean, it wasn't even really close, but because the Maulers couldn't punch it in the red zone, it was a 9-0 game at one point, and then the Stallions were able to kick field goal and then score right before half and go into the half with the lead. I mean, you couldn't have felt better if you were a player on the Stallions team having the half that they had and being in the locker room winning. And so I think the Maulers are a great team. They could be an elite team if they can kind of figure out the red zone stuff on offense. And I think they're getting there. I mean, Troy Williams, like I said, we've talked a lot about dual threat quarterbacks. He's kind of that guy. I mean, he ran the ball really well against the Stallions, which their run defense has been terrible all year. But
that one touchdown, we just said rush him up the middle, and he scored on it. It was beautiful. I said it during the whole game. Try rushing him up the middle, and maybe we'll score on it. They ran that play. Boom, it was a touchdown.
Yeah, no, they ran that jet sweep quarterback read play, and the Stallions couldn't stop it. I mean, they were so afraid of him handing the ball to Henne on the jet sweep and trying to get out inside and stop Henne because he can do so much with he's in open space. They overcommitted, and then he just took it right up the middle and down the sideline, bounced outside, took it down the sideline for a touchdown. I think it's a 34-yard
Do you
run.
think they see the Renegades and go, why did we get rid of Devion Smith?
Yeah, that may be. I mean, they've got two running backs that seem to have some potential with Madre London and Groshek, but neither guy has looked that impressive. I mean, it's just been in 3 yards here.
I think people figured out London because he was on fire last year.
Yeah. They've not.
I mean, it looks like they figured out Troy Williams is going to be this quarterback moving forward.
Yeah. Which, I mean, to the running backs,
figuring stuff out, just like we talked about Mike Nolan up there in Michigan.
Yeah,
he's still trying to figure out, and still have these are the two brand new coaches, right, of the year, right? No, there's three of them: Horton, Nolan, and then New Orleans head coach, right?
Horton, Nolan, DeFilippo, and
I like Coach Horton. I mean, you listen to his interviews; he's a tough, no nonsense type of guy. When you listen to his interviews, they're much better than Kirby Wilson's. I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, I think they're moving in the right direction. And I think the Maulers, we could see them in the playoffs. I mean, if they can win this week against the Panthers, that would be huge for them. That would put them in the second spot in the North. And so I think they're very much right there in the mix for playoff contention. If they can figure out their offense, it's not far-fetched to me. I don't know if I'd say it's likely, but it's not far-fetched that they could be in the championship.
Because their defense is stout. We already know that.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't given up more than 24 points in a game yet.
Obviously, you mentioned Trevino earlier. I saw one of your posts, Luke, from earlier. You mentioned Trevino, Thompson, Hills, Bethel, and there's one more guy, too, you mentioned that were in the MVP talks already.
Yeah. Magoo, I think, was the other one. Yeah.
But Trevino is all over the place.
Yeah,
hell of a ball player.
Their front seven, their linebackers, their line with Boogie Roberts. I mean,
I had Boogie on the show a couple of weeks ago. I love that guy. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's hilarious to talk to and hear. Even just when they got him mic'd up, it's great.
We had a Stallion on here too. We tried to get him to come on tonight, but we couldn't get him. D. Gray.
Oh yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, I love D. He's a great guy to talk to. And
we were trying to get him to come on tonight, but I couldn't get him this week.
Yeah, he loves the Steelers, so
he's drafted by them.
Yeah. So you can talk it up with him about that. He's got his own Steelers podcast show and stuff like that.
Yeah, he had Trey Essex on last week.
Yep. Yeah. So he does good stuff. But yeah, I'll stop talking about the stats. I'll say one or two more things, and then I'll let you guys give your thoughts. But I mean, overall, I thought it was a great game. I mean, the Maulers, I do think they took a step forward. I mean, again, they're right there. They're that close to beating the best teams in the league. The Stallions, rough start, but they figured it out. Magoo, I don't know what happened at the beginning of the game, but he did not look like himself. Those 2 interceptions were terrible, but he made up for it.
They were so underthrown.
Yeah. He could have easily had a touchdown on that post, way underthrew the guy. The other one had a guy with a hand in his face and just tried to force it. Just bad throws. We saw that inconsistency at the times last year when he played, and we hadn't really seen it this year. Kind of fell back into some bad habits, I felt like, at the beginning of this game. But again, he was kind of a little magical, later made up for it with creating, time in the pocket and scrambling and what he was able to do. So, in the end, it turned out to be a good game for him. Not his best game, but a good game for him. And, the special teams for the Stallions, again, kind of like I was saying with the Breakers, the best teams, they got offense, defense, and special teams. 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns in 2 weeks. That's been a huge part of what the Stallions have been able to do to produce points, even when their offense is maybe sputtering a little bit. And so the Stallions are still, I think, a very well-rounded team, a very good team. It was huge having Scooby right back defensively to slow down the run a little bit. I think just 2 very, very good teams, very evenly matched in ways. I mean, I think it was the Stallions' strengths or some of the Maulers' weaknesses, and the Maulers' strengths are some of the Stallions' weaknesses. So they kind of matched up well in that way. It kind of went about how I expected it to go. I thought the Stallions would pull it out in the end, and they were able to. But again, the Maulers are right there. But it was a great game. These teams obviously won't see each other again in the regular season, but I think they're both certainly playoff potential teams. It'll be interesting to see, kind of how things shake out with each of them moving forward.
Especially because one team already has that winning culture with Skip Holtz, and Pittsburgh had to deal with last year. They had Kirby Wilson, and they had a great defense, but they didn't know what direction they were going because they were starting with 5 different quarterbacks. This year we came in, we brought in a no-nonsense guy in Ray Horton, who's got the culture and more of a toughness style to him. And we still got the defense, but now we got the permanent quarterback in Troy Williams, and we don't have to worry about the 5 guys breathing down his neck. He's our permanent guy. And if he keeps improving and our defense plays the way it is, we're just getting out of the basement and starting to build that winning culture that these other teams already have. So maybe by year 2 or year 3, we're going to get to where we need to be. Under him too.
Yeah.
That's
They're moving in the right direction for sure. They're moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are. Well, what are you hearing? Or next year, going back to their home stadiums? Have you gotten to talk to more players probably than me because you're in the newsroom? Have they said that they're excited to go back home? Do most of them know? Like, where's New Jersey going to play? Are they going to play in the Meadowlands, or are they going to play in that soccer field?
Yeah, I think right now there hasn't been much news on that front. I think there was a big push going into the season to kind of get to 4 hubs. And I think there's probably like a big, sigh of relief on the league's end just to getting to that point. And the first couple of weeks, just, getting the first games played at Ford Field, getting the first, games played in Memphis, stuff like that. I think that's kind of consumed a lot of the energy. And so there's still a lot of questions about what does next year look like? Is it all 8 teams in, all 8 of their own cities? Are there, 6 teams in cities, but, do Philadelphia and New Jersey, maybe kind of, share a hub where they practice or something and play games at separate stadiums? I think that's all kind of still a little up in the air at this point. At least I haven't heard anything. Obviously, I think the league wants to get as many teams in cities as possible, and they want to move that direction as quickly as possible. But they obviously want to do it in a way that's, financially sound and that kind of thing. So there's been a lot of speculation as far as, stadiums and stuff like that, but I haven't heard anything, concrete. I
just wonder if Ray Horton and Mike Tomlin are going to be on the south side. They're going to let them use that for that facility.
Yeah, with Pittsburgh, I don't know. It's interesting, because there's the soccer team stadium there, right?
They got the Riverhound Stadium, which is like almost directly across from Heinz Field.
Right.
I don't think they're big enough for Heinz Field, but we're in a Pittsburgh town. We're a heavy football team.
Right. Yeah. So
you're not selling out pit games either, so I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if Heinz Field would be able to get the rent paid with the fan base.
That's the thing. It's tough because some of these big stadiums, it's hard to fill them with these spring leagues. But then you don't want maybe a soccer stadium that only holds 10,000 or 12,000 or something like that. And it's like, well, you're probably.
I think the Riverhound Stadium seats 19.
Yeah. So something like that might be a good fit. Obviously the XFL used some soccer stadiums.
Because it sits 24 for a concert, and I think they put 6 on the turf.
On the field. Yeah. So that could be a good option, But also, you look at Detroit, and they went with Ford Field there, which is a huge, dome, and so they might not be opposed to trying to move into a stadium that's known for football and where people are comfortable going to see football and talk some of it off and see what happens. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think guys want to be in their own cities. At least I know last year, guys got sick of playing. Guys that didn't play for Birmingham got sick of always being the away team and never getting to have a home crowd, never getting to kind of feel that energy. And so I think it's been great for the league to have, at least half the teams, playing in home cities, or, 3 of 8 playing in home cities, and others at least being close to their home cities. And I think as they continue to roll that out, that'll just give the league more and more credibility, give the players more and more buy-in. And, there's obviously a lot of turnover with these leagues, but I've also been impressed with how many guys came back from last year. I mean, the Stallions, we had a lot of guys back. New Jersey, they got a lot of guys back. Like, there's definitely some turnover, but there's also a lot of continuity too. So, as a Stallions fan, just to get that I know the best, it's like we're watching guys make plays like Alex McGough. Well, he was on the team last year. He helped us win the championship last year. Like, he was in the city last year. So, obviously these guys want to move up and get an NFL opportunity, but that's not always going to happen. And so it is kind of cool when you can be in the city and build a little bit of that connection with a player where it's like, oh, this isn't just some random new guy that's on the team and he's going to be gone next year. But it's like, oh, we got a couple guys that were here last year. They're here again this year. They're familiar faces, familiar names. You kind of know their stories. So I think that'll be great for the league if they can get more of that down the road.
I'm ready for him to play a home game.
There you go. You'll be front row.
Don't get me wrong, Canton's only an hour and 40 minutes from my house, but still, it's a drive.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Ivan, welcome back, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great. I got some good news. Took care of some stuff behind the scenes for Driving to the Top Productions, just to make sure that the show can run great. I kind of tried to listen as much as I could behind the scenes. That got kind of difficult. But I did catch on what you were talking about as far as players playing at home. I absolutely agree that guys should have the option to play close to where the team that they're playing for. After seeing what I saw in the XFL, I think the XFL and the NFL outside of St. Louis need to play in soccer stadiums.
Yeah.
Especially if they're talking about expanding, which is something that I've seen on Twitter start to become a question. Within like the next 2 years, if both leagues are already becoming pseudo G leagues for the NFL, like they used to have with NFL Europe, at least allow these guys to play in a stadium that makes money for the stadium and for the players. And I think soccer stadiums will really do that, because there's nothing like when you watch the DC Defenders and in their stadium. And for me, working at the Columbus Crew and working at the stadium you had mentioned in Pittsburgh, there's nothing you can tell me that would get me to go otherwise with the Maulers playing in Pittsburgh or any other team playing in a local area and having a home field. I think that grows the league. I think it helps sell merchandise and everything else.
Weren't the Sea Dragons on that god awful soccer field in Seattle?
Yeah, they were, and then they transferred over to is it still CenturyLink?
I think it's called.
Field. That's where the Seahawks play.
Yeah, so they took over there, and you looked at it, and it's like 5 people a row, but you
but you never really know how many people are there though, too, because that stadium's so big.
Right.
It's
like when you got 12,000 people, I mean, that's not nothing for a sporting event, but when you're in a stadium that holds 75,000 and you've got, 1 out of every 6 seats filled, it's a different environment than, like you said, in DC, where there's maybe 17, 18,000. It's not that many more people. It's more, but it's a crazy different environment.
That's a sellout because that's a soccer field.
Right.
And
that's all it holds is 18,000.
And that sellout plays into the environment when you have rivalries form in the later parts of the season. That plays into your playoff games. It looks better on TV, hence why the NFL, when we were going through COVID, was putting goddamn cardboard in the seats to make it look like there were people at the games. That's why WWE had people on monitors practically doing what we're doing just to be a part of the crowd for the WWE.
I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty neat what WWE did.
Absolutely. But now that we're outside of that, shit, you could go play at a high school stadium or a small community college stadium and pack it out. And look absolutely great doing it.
Yeah.
I think if Canton had a team, I think that stadium would be filled every weekend they were home.
Absolutely, because all they have is Canton McKinley High
field.
School.
I mean, they're selling out high school games there on Friday nights.
Right.
And it sits 26, I think.
No, it's
because the open end zone's closed, and I think I took away like 25,000 seats or something.
You might be right on that. I think the number may vary, give or take. But with that being said, give them a Canton team. Would you move a team that's not selling well somewhere else?
Or would you put Canton as part of the expansion?
Yeah, but then you got to pick up another market. And where would that market go?
Well, you figure you figure the Generals and the Maulers are going to be out of there soon.
Yeah.
And the teams in Canton, people are already getting addicted to this.
Right.
So why not just
in my church league? My bad, Adam. In my church league, there are like 6 guys who are season ticket holders. And they're taking their family and friends. They're season ticket holders for like 6 seats. They take different people every week. That's what, a 30, 40-minute drive for me as well. So if you're telling me that this entire area is buying into this, you can, there's ways to make this work. Because
I mean, you have Boogie Roberts on your radio station, and people love him.
Right, he's coming on to Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show,
and hopefully he's going to come back on here, and we're all going to be able to do this. Luke,
absolutely, him, D. Gray, and everybody else. So it's absolutely great to have these guys to have these guys on. But I personally, for me, as far as both spring leagues go, until you can't till you can't fit anybody in the stadium, get a smaller stadium and create demand.
The optics are definitely better. And yeah, I mean, there, as far as ticket prices and demand and stuff like that, as long as there's 50,000 open seats in the stadium, you know.
Well, I get. Hold on, Luke, real quick. Now that we've gone through one season in Birmingham, is it still selling out on the weekends now that people are getting used to it?
The Stallions?
Yeah.
You know, even the crowd.
Well, I guess both games, right? Because you get both games on that Saturday, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, for the Breakers games, there's still, you know, not much of a crowd if the Stallions aren't playing. And the Stallions games, actually, the crowds have been a little disappointing. I think a lot of people thought, you know, given that it's the defending champions, it's year 2, all those kinds of factors, that, you know, that we'd really have some really good, strong crowds. But so far, they've been just okay, I would say. They've kind of filled up half the stadium. So it's been a little disappointing. I think there's a few reasons for that. I think part of it is the Stallions have just had so many home games. I mean, they literally had 10 home games last year. Every single week it was a Stallions game. And so it's just different when, you know, you don't have that off week. You don't have that away week, that bye week where it's like, you know, you get kind of catch your breath on TV, right? It's like every week, you know, and people got stuff going on. So it's not like they, you know, not everybody can come every single week. And to start this season, we had 3 home games the first 3 weeks. And so I'm interested to see next week. Next week will be our first home game after an away game, because last week was the first, you know, regular season away game we've had. So I'm interested to see if that maybe kind of helps boost the demand a little bit. Obviously, like any other city, I mean, we've had different stuff going on. Like, you know, last week or 2 weeks ago, you know, Alabama had their like A-Day game, and there were 60,000 people 45 minutes away from Birmingham to go watch Alabama, you know, play their spring game. And, you know, just different things like that. So, you know,
why wouldn't they plan around that?
I think they've tried to.
You're not going to beat the Alabama.
Right. No,
you're
absolutely
not going to beat the Crimson Tide.
No, you're totally right. Yeah, it's not even worth trying to compete with Alabama or Auburn. I think they tried to play around some of those things, but, you know, the tricky thing is like the stadium that the Stallions play in is also used by our like USL soccer team, and it's also used by UAB for their spring game. And so, you know, just with scheduling things, again, there's, you know, it's like any city with all the different things going on, you know, it's impossible to completely avoid any sort of competition for eyeballs or butts and seats. But, you know, so I don't know. All that to say, the attendance hasn't been, I wouldn't say it's been terrible, but it hasn't been, I think, what the league hoped, what, you know, kind of fans in the city that follow the Stallions hoped. The first game was pretty good. I would say the first game you probably had somewhere between 15 to 20,000, you know, maybe 17, 18,000 if I had to guess a number. The last 2 weeks ago, there was maybe like, I don't know, if I had to guess, maybe 12,000. And then this past week, maybe like 10,000, give or take. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think there's some, you know, just kind of the, you know, obviously scarcity creates demand, and there's not a scarcity of Stallions home games. They've played, I guess, since 2022, they've played 16 games, including playoffs and championship. And of those 16, 13 were in Birmingham, right? So I think once things hopefully kind of get into a more normal rhythm, and again, the team continues to kind of have that consistency. It'll hopefully continue to grow, but we'll see. Time will tell.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a feeling they're not going to get a read on the numbers until these teams are playing in their home stadiums. That's just my thought.
Yeah.
Evan, go ahead.
I absolutely agree. I was just going to tell you that I got to get ready for work. I got to be on my way in like 35 minutes. I totally lost track of time. So I'll just do this. Thank you for coming to watch the USFL recap week 4. I am at Brogdon Evan / also at Talking Sports by the Lake on Twitter. I also do XFL Football 2023. I love to chat sports, talk sports anytime. You can get at me on there or at Prince to a King on Twitter and on TikTok and Instagram, where I also talk sports and do content videos covering the podcast that we do here on this channel, brought to you by Driving to the Top Productions. Luke, I definitely had a great time with the short time that I had with you today. I'd love to have you on again for Jamie and Sports Talking It. You guys already know how to reach me. I'll be signing off a little early here. Hopefully Adam doesn't screw up. You know how those Squealers fans do. And go Dog Pound. And this is the only time you're ever going to hear me say it. Go Maulers. And I'll see you guys next week.
All right, Evan. Have a good night at work, buddy.
Yeah, then.
Hey, fill me in later, all right?
All right, I'll send it to you while I'm on my way.
All right, cool.
Mhm.
So, Luke, did you make these? Did you vote on these?
Yeah, so these were my personal power rankings after the week 4 games.
I stole them from your page because you said you made them, and I was like, he's coming on, so this will be all right.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So yeah, the Breakers that won, New Jersey, then the Stallions. Oh man,
I caught a little flag. I caught a little flag.
And you have the Gamblers, Maulers, Boats, Panthers, Stars.
Yeah, I caught a little flack from the Stallions fans for having the Stallions behind the Generals, but the Stallions did beat the Generals week 1, but I think that was a different time. The Generals have seemed to really figure some things out since then, and it seemed to really be clicking. Played the Breakers really close, a little bit closer than the Stallions did 2 weeks ago. So right now, I think if the Stallions and the Generals met again, it might be a different game, different outcome. They're both 3-1. I feel like the Generals have just been a little hotter the last week or two, so I gave them the nod for the 2 spot over the Stallions. Like I said, not all the Stallions fans, I caught a little flack for that, but they were power rankings, not standings. So that was kind of my take on the top. What are clearly the top 3 teams at this point in the league.
Jamie, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with most of your power rankings. That's pretty cool. You got the Maulers still at 5th and 1 and 3. That means you got faith in them after what we talked about. So
yeah. I mean, my thing with the Maulers was, like I said, or mentioned this earlier. I mean, they have lost 3 games. If you just looked at their record and you hadn't been following the USFL, you'd probably be scratching your head and be like, you got a 1-3 team at 5. But again, their 3 losses are to the 3 best teams in the league. 3 teams that combined, their combined record between the 3 of them is 10-2. So, I mean, and again, in all 3 of those games were very close. 2 of them were decided by a touchdown or less. And then one of them, again, was 3-3 until late in the game, and the Generals kind of ran away with it and ended up winning by 17, which is technically in the USFL is a 2-score game still. So, I mean, the Maulers, and I think they're getting better. The offense is what slowed them down. The defense has looked great. Special teams has looked great. They seem to be figuring out the offense with Troy Williams. And so, in my opinion, I think they're the 2nd best team in the North. This weekend, we'll find out if they can upset, or not upset, but beat the Panthers. That'll kind of solidify them as the 2nd best team in the North. But in my opinion, I think they are. I think they're going to beat the Panthers. I think they're going to continue to improve. I don't know if they're going to be able to knock off the Generals, but I think we have a good likelihood of seeing the Generals and the Maulers in the playoffs if things continue on the trajectory that they're on.
I agree.
Well, I hope so too.
Yeah. I'll put it this way. I would feel a lot better as a Maulers fan going into week 5 in 2023 than I would have going into week 5 in 2022.
Yes, I
2022,
agree.
they were a mess.
No doubt.
Like
There was no light
I
at the end
think
of that
week
tunnel.
5 is when they signed Vlad Lee.
Yeah.
I think that's whenever he came over. London and Gorshek were just starting to get their feet moving. They showed a lot. They showed signs of hope down the end, but they were already so far out of it.
Yeah.
It was, like once a team maybe gets that down, they're just like, okay, we'll play, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
when you're not a good team, you're not a good team.
They had some
Mhm.
good players last year. I mean, they certainly weren't terrible. It's just not a great scheme offensively, no consistency at quarterback. And like you said, they weren't a great team, and they just kind of, I think, probably got beat down, worn down. Not a great culture with Kirby Wilson there, and so
Mhm.
I think the best is yet to come for
I'm
them.
gonna start out with crap Pizzagate.
That's
Mhm.
tough way to start the year for sure.
Mhm.
Do we have anything more, guys?
I
I
think.
guess
Well, I don't know if we ever did this, so I'll give you player of the game for the Stallions Maulers.
Oh, I was going with the equals. I thought we did that.
Did we?
I thought I threw out my player of the game. Maybe you guys didn't.
I had Chris Blewett as the player of the game.
Yeah, he was great. My player of the game was I think was Scooby Wright. The Stallions defense really struggled against the Breakers the previous week, gave up 45 points, but Scooby was back this week, finally healthy. Had 6 tackles, led the Stallions, 1 tackle for loss. I think was really helpful for them.
Shark Dog.
Yeah, the Shark Dog was really helpful for them in slowing down the run. And just, I think, again, talking a lot about culture, right? It's something we talked a lot about tonight. Just that defensive culture, establishing that.
I have a good picture. I have a good picture of Mr. Wright. Hold on.
Let's hear it. Let's see it. There we go. Getting loose on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
This is during the championship game last year.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great pick.
Nice.
This came from Ace.
Oh, really?
He's like, it's one of the pictures before I got yelled at for taking pictures.
There you go.
But yeah, I was like, wait, I have that picture.
Yeah. So it was great having him back. I think we talked about those 3 red zone stops where they were able to keep him out of the end zone inside the 10, and I think for him, Coach Holtz talked about this after the game, but Scooby's such a vocal leader for the defense. He really sets the tone for them. I think helps them to kind of stay focused, to play with high energy level and all those kinds of things. And so I think on paper, obviously he did a lot for the team: 6 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, but also just things that you can't quantify as far, again, as the culture, the attitude, the mentality, the belief that the defense has in what they're doing as a unit, kind of making sure everybody's where they're supposed to be. He's kind of the quarterback over there at the middle linebacker spot. And so I think it was huge for the Stallions having him back. If he wasn't there, obviously it's not a one-man game, but if he wasn't there, maybe the Maulers do squeeze in the end zone on one of those early drives, and it's maybe a very different ball game. So he was kind of my player of the game, and I think it was huge for the Stallions having him back.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, did you guys ever do an auction draft for fantasy football?
Mm-mm.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, you
It's
can't look
one of
away.
the strangest things I've ever done, and I've done fantasy for almost 25 years.
Yeah, it's very different from a snake draft.
Way different. Like, so far, I have 2 players, and I have Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
2 quarterback league.
Yeah.
But it's just so weird. Like, you get a certain amount of money, you can only spend, and then like once you get these 2 players, you're like, I can only spend like $18 a player now. You get a whole team.
Well, and it changes depending on what other people are doing too. Like I've done auction drafts before where people are like high spenders on the best players, and then they just kind of pick up what they can. And I've been in other leagues where people are a little more careful with their money, and it's like you got to kind of figure out what other people are doing. It's a whole different ball game.
This is my first one ever, so it's just catching me off guard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, guys. Do we have anything else to have out there tonight?
No, I think it's great having me on. Appreciate you guys doing this and letting me be a part of it. It's fun.
We do it every Tuesday, Luke. You're more than welcome to come back. I'll send you a text and be like, hey, if you want to pop on, let me know.
Sweet.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks for coming on, Luke. You were great. You were awesome.
Thanks. Yeah.
I just sent you the link. I just said, hey, we're doing USFL I think I sent it this morning to you, and you're like, oh yeah,
I think
man.
so. Yeah.
It wasn't long before I don't know. I just seen that you were USFL. I didn't even read your profile. I just saw a couple things that said USFL, and I was like, I want to get this guy on the show.
Yeah,
and then I'm reading your profile. I'm like, well, this guy's in the newsroom.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I don't have my own podcast or anything like that, so it's fun to kind of pop around. And I've been on a few different people's that have asked me to be on, and so it's fun kind of chatting with different people, fans of different teams, people with different experiences and stuff like that. And it's always a good time.
Well, Luke, you have a guest spot every week on our show.
I appreciate that. Absolutely.
All right. Yes, you do.
Look forward to coming back.
Yes, sir. Hey, so Luke, one more time, how people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter. That's kind of where I'm most active. So my handle, you can see it right there. It's Luke Miller PFN, which stands for Pro Football Newsroom. Write articles for them. Easiest way to find those is if you go to usflnewsroom.com. You'll see different columns on there. Anything kind of related to the Stallions, probably written by me. So you can find some of the stuff that I've posted on there as well. Articles I write up. Usually do recaps of Stallions games, previews of Stallion games, other things here and there. But like I said, kind of active on Twitter too. That's probably the easiest place to find me.
Jamie.
Yeah, guys, thank you for listening to our podcast tonight, driven by Driving to the Top Sports Productions with Mr. Talking Sports at Driving to the Top Productions, Adam McNally and Evan Brogdon. And thanks again to Luke Miller, Pro Football Network, for having him on. You can follow me on my Twitter account, Jamie Malloy at DJ Dog Tags. Please follow me there as I continue to grow my followers each and every day. You can also check out my articles on www.defianttakesfootball.com. I am a sports writer for that company, writing exclusive football content for Syracuse University football, which is college, NFL, and also I write football for stories for spring football to include the USFL and NFL. So again, please follow me on my Twitter, Jamie Malloy at DJ Dog Tags, and also check out my articles at www.defianttakesfootball.com. Please and thank you.
All right, I am at Talk Sporting. Oh my gosh, at Sports Talking It. Got a little tongue twister there. And I thank Jamie and Luke and Evan once again. I know Evan had to go to work, but we do our best around here and hang out, guys, and we'll talk backstage for a minute. And